Hi, this is Ruth Royal from Youth Pledge for Employers, and I'm really delighted today to be talking to Stuart Morris, who's Managing Director at KLT Filtration. Stuart, lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So, first of all, kick us off by telling us a little bit about KLT Filtration and what you do there.
Okay, KLT Filtration is quite a new company. We've been trading for about 6 years. We are a spin out from the KL Technologies Group based in Kings Lynn, and we make water filters for drinking water. Now, most people haven't heard of drinking water filters because in the UK and much of Europe, we get most of our drinking water through municipal sources. But in the majority of the world, those don't exist. So people have to have their own drinking water filter solution in their house. So we export probably 80% of our product outside Europe.
Wow, that's amazing. And do you make a lot of product every year?
Yeah, we make hundreds of thousands of filters a year.
Wow.
We believe that from where we are at the moment in the filter industry for our sector, we've got about 1% of the global market share, which for a small company is quite an achievement.
That is fantastic. That's amazing. So tell us a bit. I mean, that sounds like actually it's sort of quite a big operation for a small company in that sense. Would you be able to tell us about the different sorts of jobs that people do at KLT Filtration?
So we are a manufacturing organisation, but we're a full service business. So we've got sales and marketing at the front end.
Okay.
We run our own e-commerce platform in the United Kingdom and Europe. We're also very shortly going to have our own e-commerce platform in the United States. So we work with the very latest sales and marketing technologies. We have science and engineering teams to engineer the product. There's a lot of science and engineering that goes into water filters, and it's all micro technology. Everything we do is measured in milligrams, parts per million, parts per billion. The product itself is made using powders, which we bring together to create a ceramic, to create a porous filter. So we engineer those powders using things like scanning electron microscopes and spectroscopy equipment, chromatography equipment. So the very latest scientific equipment that we can access to. Then we on the shop floor, we've got production engineering. So we have a process. So we turn the ceramic from a liquid to a solid using a process of not too dissimilar from pottery. We make the billet and then we fire the billet, and then we assemble product. We also have some CNC machinery on the shop floor. So we have a mixture of production operative skills required, everything from CNC operation to process management to manual assembly.
Wow, I'm just making some notes because that sounds really quite complicated.
Yeah.
And so just could we talk a bit more about the science and engineering teams, because that's fascinating, the whole concept to me of micro technology. What sort of skills might people have, and what sort of training might they have done to go into that type of work, Stuart?
We're looking for people with science backgrounds. Now, I'm myself a mechanical engineer, so a lot of what we do is mechanical. On the shop floor, we use quite a lot of electrical engineering and pneumatic engineering. The equipment that we use is pneumatically controlled. So things like design of P&ID diagrams, which people probably won't be familiar with at school level, but that's the basic layout of a system and designing how a system works. PLC control.
Programming logic controller.
So the ability to use.
I don't know where that came from in my brain, Stuart, but that's interesting.
I think you were ahead of me there. So, so we use those sorts of electronic and electrical skills. We have biology expertise because we remove microorganisms, chemistry, because a lot of what we remove from water is some form of chemical. There's a lot of chemicals in our water. So a basic scientific approach.
So people that are going into those sort of jobs around the mechanical and engineering, what sort of training do they have? What sort of training might they have had, sort of the mechanical, electrical engineering, or do they come and do apprenticeships, or do they come having at a higher level?
The people that we have at the moment, myself included, are all graduates.
Right.
Our main design engineer is actually got a PhD in materials.
Wow.
So, but we have people who are from sort of an HNC, HND upwards.
Right, okay. So very, very specialist in terms of the needs of the skills. And what about people sort of on the shop floor doing the production engineering? What sort of skills might they have, or training might they have done?
They would have more sort of city and guilds sort of level. Some of them might go to HNC, HND level. And then the operators in the shop floor can be unskilled. We will give training to various people in the different processes, but we take people from sort of general GCSE background as well.
Right, okay. Well, that's really interesting to know about sort of the different kind of routes into all those different levels of science and engineering that exist in your organisation. And for the other sort of roles, I guess you sort of touched on that you've got sales and marketing and an e-commerce platform. I'm guessing that you've got people sort of with specific kind of digital and marketing skills working in those kind of environments.
Yes, some of it is self-taught.
Right.
Some of it we work with digital agencies who specialise in that particular area. So when we set up our initial e-commerce platform, we did it ourselves. So we worked with people like Amazon, who give quite a lot of guidance as to how to do this. And we worked with a local web developer. So we structured how we wanted the website to look and how we wanted to operate. And we worked with a local web developer to do the actual coding. So there's a mixture of in-house and subcontract skills, because we're quite a small company. So we use subcontract skills quite a lot. And people who come in and work for us will very often find that they're having to go outside their natural comfort zone to work with other expertise. But that's part of the excitement of it. There's lots of new things to be done here.
Yeah, oh, that's amazing that the whole sort of cutting edge nature of the work that you're doing there from a science perspective, but also as well from that digital perspective as you launch sort of e-commerce in the States as well. I wondered if, sort of reflecting on perhaps some of those different job types, maybe around that, let's think about the sort of sales and marketing, the e-commerce perspective. First of all, we've talked about some of the hard skills that people need. What sort of soft skills do people need for that kind of sales and marketing e-commerce style environment?
On the sales and marketing side, it's quite a challenge, because most of the places that we sell to are outside Europe. So the ability to understand different cultures, different cultural approaches, the way that different people around the world do things differently, but still we need to make sales, and we need to communicate what we do to those people and show how we can solve their problems. So that's quite important. The ability to travel, usually people travel on their own. In myself, since being in this job, I've found myself in places like China, in a railway station, massive railway station of 20,000 people, and I'm the only Westerner there speaking English.
Gosh.
So you do have to have a bit of confidence in your ability to get around the world. So that's quite important. And then when dealing with people, you have to rapidly understand their cultural norms, their way of doing things, which is very often very different from ourselves. So those aren't really hard skills that you get from an education. That's more personality driven. So sales and marketing people have to have a good understanding of the product and what we do, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have any particular qualification. We tell people internally what we do, and we can give that support, but they do have to have good people skills.
And that's so interesting, like that cultural sensitivity piece that I hadn't really reflected on. That's really interesting that that's such a vital part of your sales and marketing team, and so different perhaps from other organisations locally that may not be trading in other countries like that. And from your engineering perspective, what sort of soft skills do you think make good engineering science team members at your organisation?
Well, one of the things that I've found about science and engineering is scientists are they intrinsically lack confidence in their data, which is a good thing. So
they've got to be evidence-based.
It's got to be evidence-based, but you've got to challenge it all the time. So often people will say, what's the answer to this question? And they'll get an answer. And people will be accepting of that answer. But in science and engineering terms, we're not accepting of that answer. Why? Back that up. Where did that information come from? Is it real? Because so often things are not what they appear. And we have to get to the root cause of what causes engineering issues to happen. So things like building bridges, etc., there are rules that are followed. But in our business, we have all sorts of peculiar things with data. Water behaves in a very strange way. So, for example, we've had testing where we've removed a particular material, and all the test results have said we've removed a particular material, and we've questioned it and discovered that actually it wasn't the filter that removed the material, it was another chemical in the water that was absorbing another material. So you can't always believe the test results. You have to ask why, how, when, all of these questions until you get to the truth of the matter. So that's very, very important.
That inquiring mind, essentially, like that, and that want to sort of challenge what that's really fascinating, because I can see how sort of attention to detail and things and organisational skills are things that come up regularly, but I love that sense of inquiry about what you're doing, that being such a key piece for you guys. What does sort of if somebody is sort of working in the science and engineering team, I know that I appreciate there might be different roles, but if it's possible to sort of generalise, what might a typical day for them look like? From they sort of, what might they come in and do? What might they?
Well, because we're a small company, there's only 18 of us in employees, but there are about 25 of us, including key subcontractors, that behave like they're part of the company. We talk to them every day. So you can find yourself doing all sorts of things. So from the science point of view, any scientists are good problem solvers. So our scientist here, who is brought on to do testing of water and understand how we can remove contaminants, which could be chemical, heavy metal, microbiological, from the water, has found himself on the shop floor looking at heat cycles in kilns.
Right.
Because he has the problem solving ability to go down there, understand that there's an issue, collect data to try and resolve that problem, and then come up with a new process or an advancement to the process that's already in place. So that can happen. Building equipment. So again, he would be using analytical equipment in his main core job, but then he'll find, can you go and build that filter, prototype filter for a particular application, a prototype system which incorporates more mechanical engineering pieces and parts. So again, outside, our principal scientist is a biologist, but he does quite a lot of mechanical engineering.
Wow.
So you as a scientist and an engineer, you will be using your problem solving skills in a lot of areas within the company. Most other people within the company end up doing lots of different things. We have a lady here who came in to join us as e-commerce, and she set up our e-commerce platforms, did an excellent job at that, but then moved into supply chain, which she once told me she would never have believed that she could do, and she's excellent at.
Oh, fantastic, because you had the opportunity to do different things in a smaller organisation. That's really fascinating, Stuart, and that, like you say, those sort of opportunities to try different things in your role. The day in the life of a scientist sounds absolutely fascinating. I kind of wonder, from your perspective, just to kind of bring us to a close really, if you were to go back and have a conversation with your younger self, starting off out in your career, what would you tell younger Stuart? What would your piece of advice be around careers?
Well, I'm quite pleased to have been an engineer, because engineering, people think of engineering as people who have the answers. That's not true. When you're at school, there's always a right answer to the exam.
Yeah.
Right. In reality, there isn't. What the engineering and science skills is, it gets you into the right area, but it's actually quite difficult to do that. So what you're actually trained in is problem solving and how to use data and analyze situations. And because of that, I've worked in a number of different industries. So I started working for an instrumentation company just near Cambridge, which got me into refrigeration, and I specialized in thermodynamics at university. I then worked in the heating and ventilating industry for a number of years, which got me into other areas such as chemical engineering, electronics, electrical engineering, my core area of mechanical engineering, and quite a lot of people management, because I've run some very large technical departments. I then moved into a completely different sphere of telecoms, and I was able to go and work in a completely different industry, no mechanical engineering whatsoever in that, but use the same set of skills to solve the problems that they had. And then I worked, so I did that for a number of years. Then I worked for a bearings company, where my career sort of progressed from being just an engineer to sort of more general management. So I used the same approach to solving process problems with sales and marketing. I've also studied marketing, because that helps you understand what customers do, customer behavior. So that gives you the interface between solving a particular problem and understanding all the facets of that problem, some of which are just science and engineering based, some are people based.
Yeah.
So I think engineering has given me the ability to adapt and develop over the years, much more so than some other career paths that I've seen, where you tend to be in one particular area. And the advantage of that is it's been interesting. I've done heating and ventilation, I've done dehumidification, I've done bearings, I've done one company I worked with was a startup company which was investigating microwave plasma and splitting methane using microwave plasma. The problem there was to develop a manufacturing process to do it, which we did. So that approach gives you all sorts of avenues, and you can go in all sorts of different directions.
And you've travelled the world to boot.
Yes. I mean, work takes you everywhere. I think I've been to something like 45 different countries around the world, mostly with work. I've done more states in America than most Americans. I've done all the major states in China and much of the major countries in Asia. So yes, I've been all over the place.
Wow. Well, it's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you today, and so interesting to hear all about all the things that are happening at KLT Filtration right here in Norfolk, but affecting the world. So Stuart, thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure.